This is Good Morning San Diego.
Last weekend's mass shooting in Florida is just the latest in an unfortunate series, really, that's been going on for so long, and the reality that we live in today. When we come back, we're going to chat with a security expert about how to react and increase your chances of surviving an active shooting event. EA Sports has decided to cancel all remaining Madden NFL 19 tournament qualifying events following the deadly shooting in Florida. Organizers are reviewing security protocols and making changes for future events. The qualifiers were set to take place in Dulles, Virginia, Santa Ana, California, and Carrollton, Texas in September. It's unclear if the events will be rescheduled. So what happened in Jacksonville and other recent mass shootings are leading to more people being aware of what to do in an active shooter situation, or are they more aware? That's a question to put to Michael Julian of MPS Security. He's here to tell us a little bit more about this and how we can prepare ourselves. Michael, nice to have you here.
Thank you, Carlos.
All right, so let's talk quickly about an active shooter event. There seems to be still, after all that we've gone through, and shooting after shooting after shooting, that people still aren't aware of their situation when they're in like at a theater or an event like this one in Jacksonville.
Well, the problem so far is, Carlos, is that most people still don't believe it can happen to them. The first chapter in my book is literally, it won't happen to me. And
right.
The fact is, it can happen anywhere at any time. So once people start to understand that, they will hopefully become more situationally aware.
As you've studied this, is there anything that's typical? Anything that's predictable? Anything that you can point to and say, this always happens in this situation?
You know, the Secret Service just came out with a study going all the way back to Columbine, and the results, unfortunately, were there's very few typical, consistent indicators, except that most are male, and even the age from 13 to 70 is, you know, a pretty wide spectrum. So it's very difficult. They found out that only about 25% were found to have any kind of mental illness. So the whole idea of them being insane or all psychotic is kind of out the window. So we're still learning, even though this is you know, back in 1999 when Columbine happened, we've started really studying this, and at some point we will hopefully start to see some indicators that we can zero in on, but as of right now, very few things are a given, so it's hard to see and predict what's going to happen.
It's really interesting to me. I can't, you know, you'd think there'd be some sort of pattern, but all right, so give us some ideas of what happens if you find yourself in an active shooter situation. What's the first thing someone should do?
Well, the program I created is called ALIVE, and it's Assess, Leave, Impede, Violence, and Expose. The very first thing that I teach in my classes is you have got to assess your situation, and that doesn't mean 5 minutes, that means 5 seconds. You take a deep breath, stop to realize what's going on, get some oxygen to your brain and say, okay, what is happening to me? Is this fireworks? Is it a potential active shooter? And you know, just like in Las Vegas, when so many people thought it was fireworks, a lot of people have never even heard a gunshot in person, only on television. So they didn't understand. But with the awareness that's happening from these events and studying them and seeing them on the news, I think the next time someone hears pop, 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 they're going to go, holy cow, I don't think it's fireworks, I think it's somebody shooting.
So what do you do?
Well, you assess the situation, and then you figure out what are my best next steps. Can I, you know, goes back to the original run, hide, fight that Homeland Security created. Can I get out of there? And absolutely, if you can get out of there, you do so. We saw in Columbine when kids hid under the table instead of running. Unfortunately, those ended up being fatal mistakes. You get out of there as far away as you can, as quickly as you can, but you dial 911 immediately. 911 has got to be called. Get law enforcement on the way. Many of these shooters, being the cowards that they are, will literally take their own life when they hear the sirens coming.
Okay, so how do we not feel constantly vulnerable? I mean, we want to be able to enjoy a concert, a football game, a soccer match with our kids, a night out at dinner. I mean, literally, when we talked about this could happen anywhere. How do you not feel completely not, what's the word I'm looking for? Always nervous about vulnerable, but there's another one, paranoid. That's the word I'm looking for. You don't want to live your life in paranoia, right?
Well, there's a fine line between that, honestly. My father, who was former military and law enforcement, I would say he was probably leaning towards the paranoid side because he was always overly situationally aware. But unfortunately, we are always vulnerable. And so we have always got to be kind of the mindset of what's going on around us. So what I teach is a security mindset, which is you're thinking up until an event happens, so you're prepared, you can avoid those areas. Instead of going and standing right in front of the stage, which are the best seats in the house, you might want to be near an exit or near a pillar where you can take cover if some shooting does start. We are always going to be vulnerable. So we have a mindset of security up until that point. And then when the event begins, then we kick over into a survival mindset. And that is an intense desire to survive and get home to your loved ones. And that means doing whatever it takes. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people, if they've not had this sort of training, they freeze. They don't know what to do.
Right.
If you know what to do, like an individual that was at the 91 Music Festival, who had been through one of my classes, she said, thank goodness I knew what to do, so I just got up and ran. And a lot of people that stayed in that field ended up being shot and killed.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about your course and how we can get involved in that and where we can pick up your book.
Sure. Well, the course is, like I said, alive. I teach it all over the country to employees of corporations, private schools, utilities agencies, and it is simply the steps to take. It's kind of like Run, Hide, Fight on steroids. Yeah. It's Run, Hide, Fight was the very first version, and the very first version is not always perfect. Well, we've had a lot of opportunity for guys like me to improve on the Run, Hide, Fight. And then my book, of course, is called 10 Minutes to Live. Now, it's important to understand 10 minutes is the maximum that most of these ever happen. Virginia Tech, 91 Music Festival, those were all 10 minutes or less. And I teach in my survival mindset, you can do anything for 10 minutes. So if you focus on, I've only got 5 minutes to go before this thing to be over, you're not going to be focusing on, oh my, I'm going to die, what do I do? Yeah. So you're focused on survival. The website is activeshootersurvivaltraining.com. You can get the book and you can schedule a training through.
Great, fantastic. Michael, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate
My pleasure,
your great advice there.